Good. Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Inshallah, this is going to be this is the fourth and the last lecture in the series, The Muslim Family. Inshallah. So what did we do so far? The first was how to choose your spouse. The second, how to have a happier married life. The third, how to solve marital problems. And this one, inshallah, how to raise your children. Or how to raise our children. Right? Because they are our children, right? So even if they are your children, right? But they actually do belong to the community in the sense that we benefit from their success and harm by whatever challenges they're faced. So how do we raise our children? And inshallah, next week we'll start another mini course. It will be in Aqidah, inshallah, right? So we did receive some requests to focus on Aqidah. So it will be an explanation of a book by Imam al-Muzani. He is the student of Imam al-Shafi'i. And the book is called Sharh al-Sunnah. So we'll explain that, inshallah. We'll see how that goes. So it starts next week, inshallah. So, how to raise our children. Now, just as an introduction, the reason why we had this series is because Muslims in general and in humanity at large is facing increasing trouble with family life. I remember maybe at one point, and you can still read about it in some older, Islamic literature. At one point, Muslims were saying, "Oh, look at our family, how strong our families are." The rate of divorce in Muslim families and community is so small and tiny compared to the West. This is because of our values and all of this and that, right? But when you look at it today, the rate has gone up, has really shot up, whether it's for Muslims living as communities, as minorities in non-Muslim countries or in Muslim countries as well. So there's something not right about this. Yeah, I understand, as we said last time, divorce sometimes is necessary. But what did we say about it? It's what? The last solution. It's not the first thing that you resort to once you have problems. You try to fix it. And I understand that there are some brothers and some sisters who are scared. Because of everything that is happening, they're really scared that they don't want to get married. It says, because I'm afraid, if I do it, what's going to happen to me is what happened to my friend. This person in that masjid, this sister in that masjid. So I will go through the same pain. I don't want any of that. And the same thing that stops also couples sometimes from saying we want to have children, because look at their child and what problems they're having with them. I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for my family. So, subhanAllah, there's something scary, and I understand there's something scary about starting a family. You're marrying this individual, you don't really know them. Even those, subhanAllah, even those who date for years, do they really know the person is who they get married to? Does that guarantee a lasting, happy life? It doesn't. So who is this person I'm getting married to? Right? Sometimes it's a gamble. Right? Sometimes it's a gamble. I'm going to have a child. Will that child be pious or not? Sometimes it's a gamble. There's an echo? Some echo. Okay, I can drop it here. Yeah, I can hear that. So I can drop it a little bit and hopefully it can help a little bit. So there's a little bit of gamble in it, but also there should be an element of trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where if you do everything in your power, leave the rest to Allah Azza wa Jalla. And you can't be hesitant or scared of doing what Allah loves, basically getting married and having children because of what? Subhanallah, unforeseen, events, unforeseen future. Because what you're afraid of may happen, but it may not happen. Or it may happen, but Allah will give you the power and the wisdom to be able to solve it. So, yes, I understand the reluctance, I understand the hesitation, I understand the fear, but at the same time, right? We can be, idhnillah, if we believe in Allah, if we trust in Him, if we take the actual good steps to get what Allah wants us to, we will, inshallah, achieve the results that we want with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is one thing, something I wanted to say as an introduction. So, about 12 or 13 points I'll share with you tonight about raising our children. The first is, we have to recognize them as a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just look at how many people who don't have children, or who have children but their children having, physical problems, mental problems. So if Allah gives you a child, and by the way, I'm not saying that those who have these types of children or don't have children are cursed. No, subhanallah. They could be more blessed than those who have children. It's just, subhanallah, this is the path that Allah had chosen for them. But I'm saying that if you do have a child, recognize it as a ni'mah. Right? Really recognize it as a ni'mah. Allah had given you this individual. And there is no, you can think about it, there is no greater gift, because if you can shape this boy or girl to be pious men and women, you know that everything that they are doing, if you are a cause, everything that they're doing goes to you. If you are this cause. All the dua that they will make for you when you're alive and after your death goes to you. It's not going to be anyone else who's going to be as dedicated and as beneficial as a child, as a righteous child that you leave behind. That's why the Prophet ﷺ named them as one of the running charities, continuous charities that you will leave behind. So it's a ni'mah or no? It's a ni'mah. Right? So, if you consider it to be a ni'mah, you need to thank Allah for it. Now, how do you thank Allah for a ni'mah? How do you thank Allah for a ni'mah? What do you think? Dua is one thing. We're going to be talking about dua, inshallah. One, verbally, thank Allah. Alhamdulillah, right? You find that in the Quran. Alhamdulillah alladhi wahaba li ala al-kibari Ismaila wa Ishaq. Ibrahim alayhi salam. Alhamdulillah that Allah had given me an old age, Ibrahim, Ismail and Ishaq. So you thank Allah for it, that Allah had given you this. We'll talk about dua shortly. But also you use this ni'mah in whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, not whatever Allah hates. Like any ni'mah where you really want to thank it, you take it and you do with it what Allah loves, not what Allah hates. So when you raise them the way that Allah wants, you're thanking that ni'mah. When you neglect them, you don't instruct them, you misdirect them, because sometimes we actually misdirect and misteach. When you do that, they turn from a ni'mah into a curse. Right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that among your spouses and children are enemies for you. Right? He says that in the Quran. They are enemies. So imagine someone who's giving birth to a child, he's so happy, she's so happy that they've given birth to them. That child turns to be an enemy. Someone who opposes them. So you need to preserve the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by knowing whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves with it. Meaning teaching them, as we will see inshallah, teaching them Islam, developing good habits, giving them advice, discipline when discipline is needed, not neglecting them. And what I want to say also is taking care of them should be when you decide, I'm going to have a child. Right? That's lifelong responsibility. And you say to yourself, this is a lifelong responsibility. In the sense that I'm not going to just have a child and then decide I'm bored with this. I'm just going to be doing something else. No. That child is your responsibility. And it's not just financial responsibility. Especially like when the parents split. And the mother is the one who's raising the child, and the father sometimes feels, it's just my responsibility is just what? The check. And nothing else. That's not your responsibility only. That's part of your responsibility. But where is the model? Where is the example? Where is the instruction? Where is taking care of them, talking to them, ensuring that they are actually balanced, righteous individual? Where is all of that? That's also your responsibility. And Allah will ask you about this. So it's not just a blessing or Allah had given you a gift. Go enjoy it and have fun with it. No, Allah will ask you about this child. Right? The famous hadith, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every one of you is going to be asked about his flock, his family. This child, this child, this child, your spouse. What did you do to them? What did you not do to them? How did you neglect them? So if you want them to be a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have to be preserved and protected. And the last thing is dua. Right? Why dua? Because you can do anything and everything in your power to save them and help them. But still, they may disobey you. Do you have an example? Like that famous example that you will find in the Quran is the child of a prophet of the Prophet of Allah. Nuh. Right? So you have a prophet. I'm not talking about a sheikh nowadays, a wali. You have a prophet. And not only any prophet, from ulul azm, of the best of the prophets, the strongest of the prophets of Allah. And yet he has a child who is a disbeliever. So you constantly need Allah's support. Constantly need it. رَبِّ اجْعَلْنِي مُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي رَبَّنَا وَتَقَبَّلْ دُعَاء. This is Ibrahim again, alayhi salam. Ya Allah, make me of the person who establishes the salah and from my progeny. Right? So he makes dua for himself and he makes dua for his child. So you need to also make dua, because on your own, if Allah just gives you, okay, fix this person, guide this person, you won't be able to do it. But you need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with everything that you're doing, with all of your effort, also feel that you need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's assistance. So constantly make dua for that child. And the supplication, the dua of the parent is accepted for his child. Right? Is accepted. So take advantage of it and make a lot of dua for them. So this is point number 1. Point number 2. What is your intention behind having that child? Now it could be a worldly intention, right? Fine, nothing wrong with it. But it's not the noblest of intentions. The best of intention, in addition to whatever needs you need satisfied emotionally and physically and all of that, can we do this also for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Can we do this for the sake of Allah? I want to bring into this life someone who worships Allah, remembers Allah, prays, fasts. Someone who's pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth. Someone that Allah loves and Allah loves Allah back. That's an intention. So what is beyond that? I want someone who will be a da'iyah. I'm not saying to you, you need to, he or she, they need to dedicate themselves completely to da'wah. I'm not saying that. But one of your intention, I want them to be da'iyah, callers to Islam. I want them to be examples. I want them to memorize the Quran. I want them to memorize the hadith. I want them to be teachers. I want them to do something great with their life. We're going to be talking about your dreams and their dreams later, inshallah. But I want them to do something great with their life. Why is it important to have an intention? A, because Allah rewards you for it, if it's for His sake. Then Allah will help you with it, if it's for His sake. Then what's the third thing? You will plan for it, if it's for Allah's sake. So what do you want them to do? Right? What do you want them to do? So the mother of Shafi'i rahimahullah, right? She knows what she wants with her child. She wants him to learn. So she takes him and sends him to the scholars. And he sits with them and he becomes a Shafi'i. So they take them at an early age. Ibn al-Jawzi, others, right? An example. They take them at an early age. You sit with this sheikh, you sit with that sheikh, you learn to the Quran, you learn the hadith, they become scholars. Right? So they're sculpting, they are preparing this person from a very young age because the intention is there. The end is there. So whatever your intention may be, can we make it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And can we help them by planning for that? And maybe we can add to it, what is your intention? To learn more about how do we receive, the manners of receiving the newborn. What do you do? L'adab, istiqbalul mawlud. Right? When they are born, what do you do? What do you read? What do you slaughter? How you name them? All of these things. To learn that is also part of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves and rewards for, and blesses the child also because. So learning about these things, we're not going to be talking about them tonight, but learning about these things is also important. Point number 3, are we models ourselves for our children or not? What really counts when it comes to trying to influence your children or anyone else is how you act, your behavior, rather than what you say. Right? In the beginning, they may listen to you, whatever you command. Do this, don't do that. They will listen to you, but then soon they will compare your actions to your words. And if they find double standards and hypocrisy over there, they will not take you seriously in time. So unless you actually are a model, you're modeling what you're saying, you're applying what you're saying, they'll disregard your advice later. Right? That's true for all humans, right? It's the same for us. If you find somebody giving you an advice, and you find that they are contradicting that advice, you question the validity of that advice. In fact, as adults, we know if the advice is valid, it doesn't matter what their behavior is, whether they follow it or not. Follow the advice if it's valid. But as a child, as a teenager, they're looking at you and they're saying, are they actually committed to what they are preaching or not? So sometimes, and obviously, as a parent, you want them to be better than you, right? So you try to force them to do things that yourself you're not doing. Go to the masjid. And why are you sitting home? Attend the halaqah. And you're outside. I've seen it. They drop their children off and they leave. Huh? You attend the halaqah. How about you? I'm going to be somewhere else. But you have to attend the halaqah. You have to attend the study circles. You have to go and learn the Quran, but not the parent. So after some time, they see that contradiction. And they just start following what you're doing. So, what I want to say is that, yes, you want them to be better than you, but be the person that you want them to be. And once you have a child, bi'idhnillah, you have to start changing. Right? I want them to be like that, then you model that behavior. You be this person. And when you're that person, it's easy for them to follow whatever you want them to follow. Right? And interestingly, subhanAllah, they're saying that, the children, their eyes, especially in the beginning, their eyes are covered with your own eyes. That's an expression. They're covered with your own eyes, meaning that they see the world through you. Right? That's how they see and understand the world through you. Later, right, they will start developing their own ideas, their own vision. But initially, they see the world through you. Whatever you do, whatever you value is what they do and what they will value. So you want them to be better, you have to be better. Otherwise, they will not listen to you. Point number 4, which is, connected in a sense to being a model. Spouses have problems, right? Get into arguments. Should you do this in front of the children? No. Right? Don't start shouting in front of the children. Don't start arguing in front of the children. You should have previous understanding. If this is something is gonna come up now, we stop. And wait till we're alone in the room. They can't listen to us, they can't hear what we're saying, and then you discuss whatever you want to discuss. But don't quarrel in front of the children. Right? Don't start, worse, insulting each other in front of the children. Right? And some parents do that because they need a release, right? When the other parent is away and the children are there, they start complaining about the other one. Your father is doing this, has done that. Don't you see how your mother is wasteful and this and so the children become part of that conflict and they cannot take sides. You're still talking about their mother. You're still talking about their father. They can't take sides. Right? You're only adding agony to their brain and to their heart. So don't do that. And if unfortunately the couple split, don't try to score points by what. Right? Playing with the children and custody and who should see them and how long they should stay with this parent or that parent. Still, even though you may hate the spouse, he is still the father. She is still the mother. And if they are fit, right, not a bad influence. If they are fit, they should spend time with them. So don't try to take revenge by trying to harm the other parent through the child. Right? That's a model. That's a model. That's what you're supposed to be, what we're all supposed to be. Point number 5. I call that 7, 10, and puberty. 7, 10, and puberty. Why 7, 10, and puberty? 7 and 10 are ages that the Prophet ﷺ alerts us to in the hadith. The hadith about the salah. You know the hadith about the salah? The Prophet ﷺ is reported by Ahmad and Abu Dawud. مُرُوهُمْ بِالصَّلَاةِ لِسَبْعٍ. Command them to pray when they are 7. وَضْرِبُوهُمْ عَلَيْهَا لِعَشْرٍ. And hit them because of it, meaning if they don't pray, when they are 10. I'll explain the hadith inshallah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he points to 7 and 10. And of course, puberty is when you become an adult, responsible. There is taklif. Salah is an obligation on you, fasting is an obligation on you. You're a man, you're a woman then. But before that, before you reach that stage, there is 7 and there is 10. Right? Meaning you don't wait till they are 14, 15 and tell them, pray. That is what? Too late. Too late. He says, مُرُوهُمْ بِالصَّلَاةِ لِسَبْعٍ. When they're 7, command them to pray. Meaning, although it's not an obligation on them, by the way, right? Because they have not reached puberty, right? So it's not an obligation on them. But it's an obligation on you as a parent to remind them every time when it's salah time to pray. And it's wajib on you. It's not wajib on them to pray, but it's wajib on you to ask them to pray. So when they're 7, why the age of 7? They call that sinnu tamyiz, the age of discernment. You know right from wrong. You know right from wrong. That if you know what benefits you, what harms you. Usually it's the age of 7. They can reach that age before, but typically for everybody, it's the age of 7. But you don't have to wait till the age of 7 to teach them how to pray. So there's something that comes before that. So some of the Sahaba, like Ibn Umar, like he says, if the child could now know his right from his left, he starts teaching them how to pray. Basic understanding and comprehension, he starts teaching them how to pray. So it starts from a young age. And you've seen children, and if you've seen your children, when you're standing and praying and they want to come and join you, right? And they want to come and imitate. So you take advantage, whenever they start being able to comprehend how to pray, at least in movement you teach it. Right? In words you start teaching it. And you don't have to call them before 7, you don't have to force them to pray. We're not forcing anyone. You don't have to force them. You don't have to command them at every salah's time, come and pray, come and pray, come and pray. But when they're approaching the age of 7, now your task starts. Meaning at every time of salah, so and so, did you make wudu? Come and pray. Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr, and so on, and so on, and so on. Why? So that they will develop this habit. Right? From the age of 7 till the age of reaching puberty, they will develop this habit. That you're building the habit of salah in them. Right? It's part of them now. Every salah. Right? Every salah. So someone may ask, even Fajr? Even Fajr? Well, ask yourself, do you wake him up for school? Every day? When it's early? What if, school was at a distance? And the bus will have to come and take them and it's an hour distance. Will you wake them up if it's 5 o'clock for school? You'll wake them up? 4 o'clock, you'll wake them up if they really have to go to school? You'll wake them up. So if you're going to wake them up for worldly reasons, for the future inshaAllah, wake them up also for the akhirah, for Fajr. And don't be too lenient or too merciful, you think. Some people, he's saying, anecdotally, he's saying, somebody's coming to the masjid all the time, right? Even for Fajr and everything. I asked him, where is your son? His son is in college. He says, where is your son? He said, my son is sleeping. He says, why don't you bring him? He says, poor him, it's too early and this and that, right? He says, how old do you want him to be before he starts praying on time Fajr? He's in college, second year college, and he's too young, right? So the Prophet ﷺ is talking about what? 7. 7 is not too young, right? But we're in our 20s and older, and what? We're missing salah. And the parents' fault is for him. So we think it's merciful, it's rahmah, you let him sleep, right? Let him sleep. Asr, it's okay, let him sleep. He'll miss it, miss Asr, miss Maghrib, it's fine. Let him sleep, let him pour him. He's been playing, he's been studying. But that's not rahmah, that's neglect. Because if you really had rahmah, you'll wake him up so that he or she can sleep, so that they will not miss that when they are bigger, and Allah will punish them for it. You're building an individual right, and you're building the rest of their lives. Right? So muruhum, so every salah is an obligation on you when they are 7, meaning you sin if you don't do it, to remind them that this is the time of salah, make wudu, come stand and pray. Even though it's not an obligation on them. Okay, when they reach the age of 10, he says, وَضْرِبُوهُمْ عَلَيْهَا لِعَشْرٍ. Meaning now by the age of 10, they should have developed that habit. It should be natural. You can remind, But if they're not doing it, you need to move to a different type of discipline. That discipline is hitting them. Not abusively. Not abusively. And hit them only if it is what? Beneficial. Right? So the ulama say, hit if it's beneficial. If it's not beneficial, don't hit. And of course, we understand the laws in our societies. They discourage or they ban hitting. And we're not talking about that type of beating your children. And we understand why these things are outlawed. People used to take their belts off, right? And whip their children, right? Not for salah. I'm not talking about these societies, right? That was the norm. And that was fine, So you outlaw that type of behavior, and in Islam it's outlawed. In Islam, you're not supposed to ever hit your children like that. You cannot hit your child when you're angry and you're frustrated and you want to take it out on them. That's not reform. That's not ta'deeb. That's what? Being a savage. Because you're punishing them. No, you want to reform that child. You cannot break a bone. You cannot break skin. You cannot leave a bruise. And you can only hit if it's beneficial. And you can never hit the face. Ever. Right? Of any human being. You can never hit the face. Right? So if it's not beneficial, don't hit. But what the Prophet ﷺ is telling you what? Here it's getting more serious. Right? So maybe instead of hitting, subhanAllah, you can take some other disciplinary actions. If you don't do this, you're going to be losing that. Right? And I'll leave that, inshallah, till internal motivation, inshallah. So, not only salah, inshallah. So this hadith from the Prophet ﷺ also points to something else other than salah. If you want them to do something, start from an early age and build that habit so it becomes part of their personality. So anything else, hijab, right? Don't wait till it's an obligation on her and then ask. No, she already had gotten used to now wearing the hijab. Now it's difficult for her, right? Kindness, taking responsibility within the home, having chores within the home. Right? Again, it will be like, no, don't let him do this, don't let him do that. No, he needs or they need to take responsibility for actions within the home. Whether it's cooking sometimes or cleaning the dishes or taking out the garbage. They're doing things at home. Why? Because you're building what? Character. Not like, okay, poor them, they are too young, they can't do this, they don't understand that, and they grow up lacking an understanding of responsibility and commitment, keeping up promises, keeping up their words. So we're also creating character and rewarding and punishing for flaws in character, right? At a very young age. And again, they were going to be looking at you. Does my father lie? Then I will lie. Does my father break promises? Then I will break promises. Does my mother mock other people? Then I'll mock other people. They're going to reproduce whatever you're doing at home. Right? Point number 6, I've titled that Food, Video Games, and Physical Activity. Now, just before this, I don't know if all of this is a lot or not. And I'm not intending, to make anybody feel like, oh my God, this is too much. I'm a failure. I have failed my children. I can't do this. No, it's not that. This is only advice, inshallah. Do of it as much as you can. If you did not, try to fix it, inshallah. So the next point, I don't intend, to be too difficult here, but monitor the type of food that your children are eating, right? Again, as we said that you're building habits, you're building a personality, you're building a person who's going to be living the rest of their lives with the things that you're teaching them. Okay, what food are you introducing to them? If it's sugary food, right? Unhealthy food, salty food, junk food, and that's the thing that they are used to, that's the thing that they will consume for the rest of their lives. This is the thing that they will love. So this thing could kill them. Right? And diseases, whether it's diabetes or cancer, are on the rise because of the type of food that we feed ourselves and give to our children. Right? Fast food, soda and pop. These things, I'm not going to say that they are haram, but, at least you should ban them from your home. Should ban them. And they create behavioral problems, by the way. Too much sugar, right? Creates behavioral problems for you. Do they listen to you? When they're jacked up on so much sugar. Will they? Right? Will they concentrate? Will they excel at school when the food is not healthy? So try to choose the healthiest of food, the most natural of food, the one that doesn't have any added sugar, added salt, added this, added that. Whatever fits your and my budget, inshallah. But the healthiest, do your best. Video games. Right? Of course, they'll be insisting, especially if they are males, right? We want to play video games. Should they? The thing that I want to say is that if you want to allow it in your home, allow it, but only after understanding the effect that this will have on them. Do you understand the effect that this will have on them? Cognitively, behaviorally, do you understand it or not? Have you done your research? Have you read the research? Does it increase instances and aptitude for violence or not? Does it or not? Does it affect their concentration or not? And the answer is yes, yes, yes. So subhanAllah, a lot of times we're bringing these things into our homes, thinking again we're being very merciful and kind to our children, and we're bringing in things that harm them. So video games, if it's a must, video games like anything else, if there's nothing haram in them, they may be halal. But I'm saying if they are a must, they'll be introduced at a later stage. After they have developed, right? After they have excelled at school, after they have developed good habits of reading and studying and physical activity outside the home. After they've developed this and still there's a room for video games, maybe, with a question mark. And I'd rather not. But don't introduce it to young children, and it's going to shape their brains, shape their behavior. SubhanAllah, I was talking to someone, and I don't know, just my guess. I was talking to them in a professional setting, and he couldn't sit still. He couldn't still sit in one place or concentrate. And I'm thinking, and my guess, wallahu alam, he's a gamer. Because when you play with games so much, right, you need stimulation all the time and you can't concentrate. And that could be the effect of it. Allahu alam. But this is my guess. But it has a lot of dangers to it. So don't give this to your children until you understand its benefits and definite harms. Point number 7 here is, I've called it internal motivation. You want to create in your children internal motivation, not only external motivation. The Prophet ﷺ says in a hadith, أَخِفْهُمْ فِي اللَّهِ, make them afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make your children afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning not only afraid of you. Right? Do this or your father will come and scream. Right? Pray or your mother will be upset with you. Okay, where is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this equation? So you want to build iman in their hearts. Not just pray because I want you to pray. Why am I praying? Why am I praying? Allah loves it. Who is Allah? Because they have to be connected to Allah, not connected to you. Because if I'm praying because of you, I will not pray when you're absent, when you're not looking, when you're not reminding me. So you want to connect that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So build their iman. Teach them who Allah is, His names and attributes. They should love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They should fear Allah. They should hope from Allah. So they should know more about Him. You should build that iman. Do it for Allah Azza wa Jal. Do it because Allah will give you heaven. And if not, there is the punishment of hellfire. What is heaven? What is hellfire? You have to teach them that. Right? And then also teach them, whenever you can share with them, meaningful ayat from the Quran. Meaningful statements from the Prophet ﷺ and dua, and also the example of the Prophet, his seerah, and the biographies of his companions and the righteous predecessors. Teach all of that to create in them models, and this again, that internal motivation that we're talking about. So they do this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's necessary in a non-Muslim country, because most people around them, or in some context, most people around them are going to be non-Muslims. And if Allah is not there, the fear of Allah, the love of Allah is not there, they're not going to do what Allah loves and stay away from what Allah hates. So it's not you monitoring them. You have to develop that Allah is the one who's watching them. Right? And it's okay in the beginning to move from external motivation into internal motivation. Even in education, right? That's fine. But your aim at the end is internal motivation, not external one. External motivation is like what? They're very, very young. You want to encourage them to pray. Pray, and I'll take you to this place. Pray, and inshallah, maybe we can go on a trip to that place. So they will pray. But the idea there is to get them used to praying, and then use that to develop internal motivation. You know how at schools, right? In the beginning, for children, especially if they're studying math and science, and they start giving them stickers and stars and all of that, right? This is an external motivation. Why do you do this? So you can practice it and maybe grow to love it. And if you love that subject for its own, you don't need the stickers anymore. Right? You don't need them. You don't need the stars anymore. You don't need praise. I love math, I love science. So you want them to move from loving the reward to loving the act itself. And that will make time, but that's the ultimate aim. And one of the Salaf, yani rahimahullah, he used to, as part of the ihsan, if he saw children playing, he says, come here, come. And he says, I will give each one of you a jawza, like a nut, if you go and pray. So they go and pray and they come to him and he gives them these nuts. So they say, what are you doing? He says, what is wrong with it? I'm spending few dirhams and I'm getting them used to salah. So going away from that external motivation to an internal motivation. Ultimately, you want to build iman in their hearts so that they're praying for Allah, they're doing things for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Point number 8, I said listen, talk and explain. Listen, talk and explain. A lot of times we command, do and don't. We yell and we scream and we expect obedience, but we don't talk. And worse, we don't explain. Why are you asking me to do this? They may not be asking you the why question. Sooner or later it's in their head. Why am I doing this? So can you provide the wisdom? Can you provide the reason behind your request, behind your commands, behind why salah, why hijab? See, in Muslim societies, the why is not asked so much. Maybe more today, but not asked so much. Why? Because everybody else is doing it. You don't question what everybody else is doing. Right? Our habit is that we do what the majority is doing. But when you are the minority and everybody else is questioning this either verbally or at least with their looks, or you think they're questioning that with their looks, you ask yourself, why am I doing something that makes me stand out? Give me the reason. Give me the wisdom behind it. So you need to talk to them and develop that bridge. And also because it's not only the motivation or the wisdom, but also when they are facing problems, at least they should know I can come to my parent and talk to them about it. And they will face problems. And by the way, they're not going to share all of their problems with you. They're not. But at least they can know that some of these problems, I can go to my mother, I can go to my father, and I can find a sympathetic ear. Not always a judgmental ear, but a sympathetic ear that will help me solve my problems. Right? I can trust them, I can confide in them. They're not only figures of authority, you are that, but also they are people who will help me with my problems. Right? Giving advice. One thing I heard that was very beneficial. Give advice, but not too much and not too little. Not too much advice, meaning that every time they see you, you're giving advice. How is your salah? Pray more. You should be fasting more. You should be reading the Quran more. He knows whenever he or she comes, they're going to be talking to me about this. They're going to run away from you. And they're going to run away from the Quran. They're going to run away from the salah because it's just too much for them. Every time you see them, it's advice. Quran, hadith, this. Right? I know we're worried about them. Right? But that's not the way. Or we want to be their friend. So we almost never give them advice. You never take the time to give advice. It has to be sort of a moderate, right, portion of advice. Even the Prophet ﷺ, they say, كَانَ يَتَخَوَّلُونَ بِالْمَوْعِظَةِ. He used to pick the time to give us advice, not every day. مَخَافَةَ السَّآمَةِ. He was afraid that we will be bored. And the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to remind people, give them maw'idah once a week. Once, twice a week. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud every Thursday. He says, we want more. He says, no, I'm not going to give you more. Right? Because at least every Thursday you still want more. You're still craving more ilm. If I give it every day, you'll get tired. Right? So think about your children. If every day, every time you see them, you're giving them advice, they're going to run away from you. Right? If you try, and when they're older, if you try to pressure, they're going to run away from you, right? But that's when they're older. But not too much advice and not too little of it. Point number 9, I've said from tyrant to friend. I'm not asking you to be a tyrant and I'm not asking you to be a friend. My recommendation. You're not a tyrant, but also you're not a friend. But I'm saying that you're moving in that trajectory. When they're very, very young, infants, you really are acting like a tyrant in a sense, right? You're deciding everything for them, right? I mean, they still can't talk and you ask them, what do you want to eat? Right? You know, right? You're deciding everything for them. And even when they start talking, right, but they don't really know what is good and bad for them, you still no, you have to eat your vegetables. You have to eat your food. No, you cannot watch this. No, you have to go to bed. You're the tyrant. Right? Sort of. And you don't assume that personality of a tyrant. What I'm talking about, it resembles, it's close to that tyrant. Meaning you're deciding for them what is best. As they grow older, right, you can't continue to be that tyrant. Right? Your power over them decreases. Right? Decreases. So you want to approach towards the end that area of friendship, although you're never really their friend, because a friend is what? An equal. You're still a father. You're still a mother. You still have to tell them, right, what is good for them and what is not. But you're approaching that area where instead of now commanding or forcing them, now they are 14, 15, 18, you can't tell them what to do. It's very hard to tell them what to do, right, anymore. But now is the time to tell them, this is what I think is right and wrong, and now we can talk about it. So you're closer to a friend. But don't expect that when they're 18 or 20 to start giving them commands as you were giving that when they were 2 and 3. That doesn't work. Right? So move from being a tyrant and as an ideal type, a tyrant, into being a friend. Number 10, I titled that, My Dreams Are Not Your Dreams. Right? A lot of times you may hear, I don't know a lot of times, but some children will complain, this is what my parents want me to do. But this is not what I want to do. And I know that we want them, as I said in the beginning, we want them to be better than we are. And that's fine. That's fine and legitimate, alhamdulillah. But also allow them to develop their own dreams and realize their own talents and find their way in life within the borders of Islam, within the borders of halal and haram. So they cannot be a replica of you. They cannot fulfill the unfulfilled dreams that you had. You can't do that. They're their own people. So allow them that space to breathe. Allow them that space to express themselves and find, their way in life, inshallah. 3 more, inshallah, and we'll be done. Number 11, I said patience. Sabr, right? Patience. Sometimes you're doing everything in your power and still it's not really working. Don't give up. Keep at it. Keep doing it. Keep making dua. Right? So sometimes they go on a path you don't like. It's dangerous and it's harmful. Still, do your best. Keep making dua and never give up. Because sometimes what is needed, sometimes it's the best healer is time. Sometimes what is needed is time. Sometimes what's needed is for them to commit a couple of mistakes and then they will find out that what they were doing was wrong. So you need patience and a lot of it. And you must also realize, by the way, that as a parent, we're talking about, whether it's a 2-parent household or a single parent. As a parent, sometime, right, you need outside help. I'm talking about counseling a little bit, but you need outside help. When you are too exhausted, realize that. Right? When you are overworked, realize that. When you're fatigued, realize that. And take some time off. Well, I am a parent. How am I taking some time off? If you have somebody, right, who can babysit and you can go out or, do something halal, I'm talking about halal, but do something different that can re-energize you, re-motivate you, do it. But recognize, especially if your spouse is there, if the mother is too exhausted, as the father, realize. If she is too exhausted, she cannot do her best. If the father is too exhausted, the mother should look and say, if he is too exhausted, he cannot perform at his best. So give each other a chance to breathe and re-energize. So with patience comes realizing our weakness, our limitation at times, and trying to re-energize ourselves. And if you have extended family or friends who can help, take advantage of them. And again, patience, patience, patience. Inshallah. Then, point number 12, I said reading and learning. Encourage your children to read. Instead of the TV, instead of the internet, right? Encourage them to read. Make them love reading, especially something beneficial, right? But make them love reading, because this will open doors for them. This will enhance their brain personalities in ways that, subhanallah, cannot be matched by anything else. So encourage them to read useful books. And also you need to teach them at home. Right? It's not enough to send them to Islamic school, meaning, weekend school. Or I am sending them, or I'm taking them to Islamic conferences, but there is nothing at home. And think about it. How many hours will they spend at the weekend school? How many hours are they spending in these conferences? Then versus the many hours that we're spending in public school, at home and outside. And look at the percentages. Is that enough to teach them Islam? To discipline them on virtue and taqwa? Is that enough? It's not enough. Right? And it's not simply somebody else's job and that is it. It's also your job at home. Even when they go to Islamic school, you have to ask them, what did you learn today? Right? This and this and this. Discuss that with them. What did the Imam say at the masjid today? What was the khutbah about? Discuss all of these things with them. And add to it and enhance it and complement it with teaching at home. Or at least emphasizing whatever they have learned and repeating that at home. And it's beautiful, subhanallah, right? If you attempt, sometimes you're praying jama'ah at home, Fajr, Maghrib, Isha, whatever it is, that you'd have a book, Riyadh al-Salihin, a book of Seerah. Once you pray, you sit for 5, 10, 15 minutes and you read together. Now they also are learning, and they're learning what as a family. Right? So this is something beautiful. So in addition to whatever instruction they're receiving outside the home, it has to be emphasized and complemented with instruction inside the home. No one is going to do your job for you, by the way, right? No one. The Islamic school will not do it. The masjid will not do it. It will help you, right? But no one will be able to do your job for you except you. Now, and also reading and learning under that, also you need to read and learn. Yeah, read more about Islam in general, but also about how to read. This lecture is not enough. It's really not enough. So if there are books on how to raise children in Islam, buy them and read them, right? And learn more about this, more strategies from an Islamic point of view. And if you have, inshallah, the Islamic background, there is no reservation then to go outside what non-Muslims have written and read that as well. As long as you understand that if you read something, that opposes Islam, you're not using this. But you have to know the difference. And if not, ask. But educate yourself on how to raise the best children that you can. And subhanAllah, you can share this also with others. If there are seminars, if there are halaqas, if there are books, attend all of these. Also reading biographies is very helpful. The example of the Salaf before is very helpful. How did they raise their children? How did they relate to them? How they made dua to them? How they disciplined them? All of that will give you ideas. And the last thing, inshallah, that I want to say is counseling. Counseling in the sense of what? I don't only mean by professional counseling. I mean by it help, advice. All of us need that. And whether it's the imam or it's the sheikh or a wise elder or a wise sister or someone with experience or somebody with professional training and background, academic training and background, these are resources. So ask. I'm being overwhelmed by this. I'm facing trouble with that. Ask them how to solve these questions And don't just rely on yourself when you don't know the answer. Ask and keep learning, inshallah. You just need to know that you should pick the right person. Who are you asking for advice? Pick the right person. They should know what they're talking about. Be serious about it, right? And consistent. What I find sometimes is that a person do have problems. They ask for advice, but there's no follow-up. There's no application. What should we do? This, and that is it. No, you have to be serious about it. If you have a problem and you're going for someone for a solution, for advice, take that advice and implement it. Then come back and give feedback and ask for more advice, right? And know that you need this patience and this consistency to affect change. Because, and the last one is nice, I think. In order for you to change, you need to change. Remember we talked about that before? When you need to change your spouse, they're not going to change unless you change. So also for your children, you want them to change, sometimes it also means you changing. And it's easy to complain about our children and say they're bad in this way and that bad in that way, they're not listening to me and that. Some of the Salaf have said, if they're not listening to you, there's a possibility that you caused it. You created that situation. I'm not blaming anyone, by the way, or thinking you should believe that about yourself if you're facing this. I'm saying that sometimes there is this uquq that comes, right, from the parent. Uquq that comes what? You have neglected them. You did not, subhanAllah, give them their rights, mistreat them in a way that causes the reverse, or that causes that to come back to you. So you help them to be righteous by you being righteous, right? And if you want them to change, the first path to their change is you changing as well, inshallah. So this concludes the 13 points I had for this lecture. I hope that you have found, inshallah, this beneficial. So again, the idea, brothers and sisters, a lot of us have problems, a lot of us have concerns, and there are not plenty of counselors and imams and sheikhs that you can go to all the time. So this was designed so that it can give you keys, inshallah. So if you found it beneficial, inshallah, and learned from it, alhamdulillah, share it with others. That's the idea, is that somebody will listen to this and say, okay, there is something there useful, and I'll start doing it. So that's the hope, inshallah. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Any questions? Let me know, inshallah.
So for the Aqidah class, is there going to be a book where we can buy?
Naam, inshallah. So I don't think that you can buy it, but I will provide the link for it. It's in Arabic. I'll provide the link for it in Facebook, on Facebook, inshallah, or whatever else, on social media. So I'll provide the link, and you can print those pages, and you can follow with me, inshallah. So I'll post that, and then the Facebook page, I think it's public in a sense that it's open, so anyone can access it, inshallah. You don't need to have Facebook for this. It's not. I'll give you my Facebook, inshallah. I'll give you my Facebook. Stop here, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.